What's up, everybody? Ryan and Greg here to talk about another episode of Jordan Peele's revival of The Twilight Zone. This is episode 9, The Blue Scorpion.
Ooh, now before we get started, this is a spoiler warning. If you haven't seen the episode yet, get out of here, go watch it, and then come on back. This episode was written by Glenn Morgan and directed by Craig William McNeil. Following the sudden death of his father, an anthropology professor, Jeff Stork, played by Chris O'Dowd, finds the reemergence of the elusive Blue Scorpion gun, which ends up becoming his most personal research project yet.
His conclusion will lie somewhere between the barrel of a gun and the outer regions of the Twilight Zone.
Before we get into some of our favorite scenes and moments and references and Easter eggs, Greg, what are your overall thoughts?
It wasn't bad. For a second I thought, okay, where are we going here? The season's been up and down, but for the most part, this episode looks like they tried to find this middle ground in degrees of subtlety. Many episodes have been a little bit more on the nose than others, so this one decided to drop its heavy political messaging to the very last line of the episode.
Human beings have a funny way of treating things like people. But today, we'll learn that as long as objects are valued more than lives, tragedy will forever be manufactured.
I got a strong feeling that this is how they're going to shape the show for next season. I think season 2 is going to be a lot like this episode. I really like the tension and the classic Twilight Zone setup of the plot. Supernatural mystery with a cursed inanimate object.
Oh, shit! What?
I feel the same way. I actually won't mind if this is the baseline type of Twilight Zone episode going forward for the rest of the series. It has the classic cursed object trope with the Blue Scorpion, a comically ornate Browning high-power 9mm handgun, and it follows the character through all of the mania as you would expect. Then it has all of the trappings of Peele's new series. Excellent acting and filmmaking, palpable human drama that doesn't feel forced, and recognition of different important things such as, in this case, grief, jealousy, loneliness, and on the political side, the pervasive gun culture in the United States. None of these things are very thoroughly touched on in this episode, not in the marquee way they are handled in the more powerful episodes of the series, but to have a show today that thoughtfully includes these things is still a breath of fresh air to me, especially for a format whose only entertainment imperative is to serve its spooky monster of the week.
The Blue Scorpion loved you more than anyone. It only asks one thing in return. Light. It is afraid of the dark.
All right, let's talk about some of the more interesting moments in the episode.
Right off the bat, the rules of the gun. We got them early, got them quick. I liked it. We're first told by the gun dealer and then an apparition that the gun can't be in the dark. It even knows who it wants to be used by, as it chooses Jeff in the episode when you see the name on the bullet. And I guess, okay, cool. So you're moving from person to person. And once in possession of the gun and bullet, Jeff encounters another Jeff after another Jeff.
My name is Jeff.
Now, the one thing I didn't like about the whole Jeff name thing was that it's just too much of a coincidence for everyone there to just play dumb, which is what they did in 30,000 Feet with the MP3 player. And he's like, guys, if someone just listens to this, you might be able to help me out here. And the same thing with this, where the only thing that's a compromise for this to get away with it is that you can't see the names. Only the person chosen can see the name. Everyone else is like, what are you talking about?
I have fallen in love with another man. Named
Jeff.
I wanted to think that was a little bit like just in his head.
That you see that
there
name
was not just the name, but that there were Jeffs everywhere. Like that it wasn't so much a coincidence as just a part of the mania. But the show establishes very clearly that the Jeffs are totally Jeffs to everybody else as well.
Like a Bort thing.
Oh, come on, Bort?
Mommy, buy me a license plate!
No, come along, Bort.
Are you talking to me?
No, my son is also named Bort.
I really like the scene where Jeff meets with his grad student who really wants to change her subject for her thesis, which was on animism. It really creeped her out. She was fixated on the idea that her own possessions have personalities and she needs to take care of them. She's starting to anthropomorphize everything, which is really just goes around this entire episode, honestly, with the gun. So
right, exactly. The gun has a soul and a personality to it, and that's sort of what her thesis is about. One of my favorite moments in the entire episode is when that scene ends. And it's after he's totally spaced out, completely ignored everything that she said, and he's just trying to get her out of the office before the lawyer comes in. And on her way out the door, she thanks him, and she's like,
Thank you so much. My shoes, thank you too.
My other favorite kind of silly thing in the episode is everything with the flashlight. Like after he's come under the spell of the gun, he brings it into work and he puts it in his drawer, but he leaves the flashlight in there with the light on, and then that becomes the sort of device of signaling when he has the gun throughout the rest of the episode. And for as serious as some of those moments get, the goofiness, like just the inherent goofiness of doing that,
do this, huh?
It lightened up the episode in a way that I thought was pretty good. Now, on the not so funny side of things, I really liked the ending of this episode too.
With the kids?
Yeah, we talked about it earlier, how they bring in the sort of political message at the end, but I thought it was hugely effective, at least for me. Mm-hmm. As soon as I saw the kids, I thought, oh no.
Well, if you've been watching
every
episode,
gonna get killed.
Yeah, that's why. If you've been watching every episode, when those kids show up and he pulls out the gun, you're probably starting to go, oh no, here we go.
And that's sort of what works, I think, about some of the way the end of this episode goes in general, right? Because he's a hero at the end. He doesn't get killed, which is sort of what's, you know, the foreshadowed thing from his father killing himself. And then my thought immediately went to, oh, he survived, so now one of these kids is going to get it.
Yeah.
And we didn't get that either. Instead, we got my other favorite part of the ending, which was that Peele outro, which was, you know, very overtly critical of gun culture. There was no Whipple in this episode, and I'm still holding out hope that I'm going to get my Whipple episode. But there were some other references and some Easter eggs to talk about.
Now, right off the bat, once the episode establishes its rules for the gun and the world we're in, we get a lot of references to Taxi Driver.
There are major Taxi Driver vibes kind of throughout it, and I was honestly half expecting him to show up in the car at the end stalking his wife with a mohawk.
Yeah, let's get some. Did he take 6 shots? Only 5.
Yeah, and you got the Dirty Harry stuff in there as well, and it really gets into Taxi Driver when he's in that car. I thought immediately he's going to go Travis Bickle and everyone, or at least the other Jeff, his wife's lover. They even have a little newspaper clipping, just like Taxi Driver.
You talking to me? You talking to me?
There's a little glass devil with horns that reminds us of the little penny fortune-telling machine, complete with tiny devil's head bobbing atop it, which terrorized newlyweds Don and Pat Carter in the 1960s classic, Nick of Time.
Is it really going to be 4 hours before we get out of here? You may never know. What does that mean?
Who knows?
He does.
I really dug the music in this episode, from top to bottom. You had, Jefferson Airplane in there too. And then if you look at Jeff's dad's house, what do you see? The Monterey Pop Festival, a large banner, which had Jimi Hendrix there, Ravi Shankar, and Otis Redding, who happens to be, Jeff's dad's name again?
Otis.
I'm pretty sure that might be a tribute to Otis Redding.
I've been loving you too long.
Speaking of music references, this one is maybe a little thin, but the gun comes in a heart-shaped box, and that could be a reference to Nirvana's heart-shaped box. It's from the album In Utero, which was from 1993, which means this year is the 25th anniversary of that album.
Damn.
Now, if that one's not thin enough, I got another one for you. In Peele's monologue at the end, he says, human beings have a funny way of treating things like people. Now, for as powerful as I already said the 1-2 punch of the kids in this monologue were for me, there was one part of my brain that immediately went to the Big Lebowski at that moment.
Mr. Treehorn treats objects like women, man.
Mr. Treehorn draws a lot of water in this town. You don't draw shit, Lebowski.
The gun store has the classic 1960s Twilight Zone episode, A Most Unusual Camera, playing in the background, which also features a cursed inanimate object, a stolen camera that has the ability to predict the future with the pictures it takes.
Mais non, most unusual, sir.
Isn't it, though? You don't know how unusual.
Of course, no episode of the new Twilight Zone series is complete without a very special number.
You can spot 1015 on Jeff's address, 1015 Floral Street. The gun serial number is 1015-59. And Jeff Dolan's law office is, yep, you guessed it, at 1015 Oak Street.
It's this number. This f***ing number.
Let us know down in the comments or hit us up on Twitter with any of your thoughts on this episode.
And we'll see you all back here for episode 10 very shortly. Bye-bye.